How should you price your Printify products? That is exactly what we're going to discuss here in this video. We're going to talk about some of the biggest mistakes that Printify sellers make when pricing their products. We're going to talk about the best practices and principles that you should and shouldn't follow. Let's just jump into it. So the first thing I'd point out is that the default pricing strategy that Printify follows is actually one of the worst possible strategies you could use. By default, Printify uses a pricing method called cost plus, which is basically where you take the cost of producing and delivering the product plus a percentage-based markup, and then whatever's left over is your profit. The reason this is such a dumb strategy is because your cost of producing the product isn't necessarily connected to the value that buyers receive from your product and how much they would therefore be willing to pay for it. Your goal should be to maximize the amount of profit that you make from selling your products. You don't want to just pick some arbitrary percentage number and just say that's the amount of profit that I'll make. Keep in mind this percentage here, this needs to support the shipping cost, which isn't factored in here. Then whatever's left over from that needs to support all of the marketing and advertising expenditures you might have, plus any other expense or cost associated with running a business. Factoring in all of those different fees and expenses, how much are you actually going to be left with per item sold using this strategy? It's not going to be a very large number. The shipping cost alone for a 24 by 36 canvas art piece, let's find out what it is. So I looked it up here. It costs about $13 to ship this particular size to a customer. So if you're using this cost plus strategy, cool, you actually got to take this $40 and minus 13 from it. So really you're only making $27 per item sold. That $27 left over, that's got to support all the other costs and expenses associated with running your business. So this is just definitely not the ideal pricing strategy. Probably the dumbest possible thing you could do is try to be the lowest priced offering. You might come here, you might Google this, you might research a couple of different websites, then you might come here and you might see what they're charging for this particular size. Cool, they're charging 130, they're charging 145. Haha, I will therefore undercut both of these companies and become the low cost provider. This is just absolutely the most moronic possible strategy you could pursue. And that's because with print on demand specifically, there is a middleman here that's just cutting into your profits quite dramatically. Your cost is therefore going to be much higher than these other companies which control their operations. They're probably doing a tremendous volume of sales, which allows them to negotiate on prices. So the point is, a site like this might be charging $130 for this. I can assure you that their cost to produce and deliver this product to the customer is significantly lower than what you're paying here on Printify. So your gross profit per item sold might only be $40 or $27 factoring in shipping. I could almost guarantee that the gross profit per item sold from this company is probably like half of this price, if not even more than that. So there's just no universe where you can be selling through a print-on-demand platform and you can be the lowest cost provider. There's always going to be some company, there's always going to be some Chinese seller willing to undercut you on price. People can always come to Amazon and find something cheaper. 36 by 24. They're selling this for $42 and I can apply a 5% coupon. There's always going to be somebody who can undercut you on price, charge lower, who's willing to sacrifice more profits, who's using cheap overseas labor, has greater economies of scale, and they can just afford to price significantly lower. That is never going to be you if you're selling through a print-on-demand platform. There is just no competing with this offering. The only type of business that should ever try to pursue a lowest cost strategy as that's what differentiates us, that's our selling point, the lowest cost provider. You should only ever try to do that in business where you actually have some sort of competitive advantage that allows you to price that way. If you're a gigantic retailer like Walmart or Costco and you just have agreements with all the different companies providing you with the stuff you sell, sure, because you're doing such a tremendous amount of volume, you can actually afford to pursue a low cost strategy and it might actually work for you. Or if you have some sort of, groundbreaking proprietary technology that allows you to just spend significantly less on materials and resources, or just some genius distribution network, or some sort of technological advantage that again genuinely allows you to charge significantly lower, cool, those are the only situations that you should ever try to pursue a low cost strategy. That is not the case for print on demand, and it's never going to be the case. So the best pricing strategy in my opinion is try to charge as much as you realistically can, and I would also recommend just testing different price points. Because really, if you're trying to maximize the amount of money that you want to make, there's two key things that you need to measure. Number one, what is my conversion rate? So in a simplified example, maybe 100 people come to your website and at this price point, 2 of them make a purchase. But then at a different price point, maybe it's just slightly lower, but 5 people make a purchase. So even though your profit per item sold might be slightly lower, if your conversion rate is 2 or 3 times higher, then what that effectively means is you're making 2 to 3 times the number of sales for the same amount of traffic that you're getting. So obviously, the pricing strategy that just maximizes the amount of money in your pocket, that's the best one to pursue. And really the only way to find out what those magic numbers are is just to experiment, test, measure the numbers, and just find out what works best to make you the maximum possible dollar amount. There's also some weird stuff that goes on with pricing where like some people assume, hey, lowest price is better and it means more conversions. Really, there's a lot of really interesting pricing psychology research that's been done where what you'll find is a lot of time people associate lower prices with a lower quality offering. It's going to be junk, it's going to be crap, it's going to break easily. And conversely, people often associate higher prices with a higher quality offering. You know, if you come here and you see, wow, they're charging $1,600 for this set, you know, it can make it feel like much more of an aspirational item and a sort of luxury purchase. And so in a lot of cases, higher prices can actually make the item seem more attractive to people, especially if you know the branding and positioning that the company is putting out there sort of aligns with that. I use this website in a lot of examples because what you'll notice from, you know, the mock-up images they use and just the appearance of their site is they really go for that sort of like luxury positioning. And so they charge high prices for their products. But as you can see from the review sections, I mean, people are buying this stuff and they're buying it in droves and they're quite happy with it as well. So a lot of this, you know, being able to charge higher dollar amounts, it does come down to the way you position yourself, but it also comes down to what you're selling, who your target market is, the way you position yourself. You can't just offer like a crap product and just charge $1,000 for it. You know, if they were just selling like a shitty artwork image of trees like this, or just like a shitty sunflower photograph, it would be pretty hard for them to position that as like a luxury aspirational item. You know, mock it up inside of a mansion next to the ocean, it just wouldn't quite look right. So what this company is doing here, they know their customer, they have a specific target segment in mind, but they also make sure to create artwork that has that sort of a luxury feel to it, to where they can charge a dollar amount that's a lot higher than what you can see from other competing options. But the branding, the images, the market they're going after, you know, the nature of the products focused around success and increasing your income and motivation and stuff like that, all of that sort of works together and allows them to charge a higher dollar amount. So really the fundamental answer to this question, how should you price your products? It sort of depends. It kind of depends on what sort of positioning are you going for. Are you trying to be a luxury brand, a sort of aspirational brand? And do your mock-up images, does your website, do all of your marketing materials reflect that? Or if you're just trying to sell some generic photographs and stuff, depending on the nature of the products you're selling, the communications and styling and appearance of your brand, it might be a lot harder to charge a higher dollar amount. So it sort of depends. And that's kind of what I think makes pricing so interesting. There's not really like one set number to charge for a particular product. All of these examples we've looked at here, at the end of the day, it's the same shit. It's a 36 by 24 canvas art piece, and we've seen a wide spectrum of different prices. $42 here, $145 here, $130 here, $294 here. Or we come here, they're charging $174. Again, that's what makes pricing strategy so interesting, is there is no really one correct scientific answer for the exact precise price that you need to charge. It's up to you. At the end of the day, you pick your prices, and whether the customer decides to pay for your products just depends upon how badly they want them, how valuable they think your offering is relative to competing options or alternate uses of the money. You know, me personally, I would always try to go for a higher price strategy versus a lower price strategy. Because at the end of the day, it's the same amount of work to create the products, you know, build out your store with listings, do the marketing, do the advertising, do the customer service. At the end of the day, you're doing the same work tasks. And if you could make $100 in profit or $50 in profit or $200 in profit, you know, if you're able to, pick the bigger number. I mean, if there is a scientific answer to this question, like the one correct price point you should charge, my answer on that is it's the number that allows you to make the absolute maximum possible amount of profit and income selling your products. Really, the only way to ever find that out is just to do extensive amounts of testing and measurements, and that's kind of hard to do when you're small and just starting out. Given the fact that you can never be the lowest cost provider, I would recommend just trying to pursue at least like a medium to high cost pricing strategy, just because you make more money from each item that you sell, and it's the same amount of work that you're doing to drive those sales. As a bonus, I wanted to share these two print-on-demand automation tools that can be super useful and freeing up a ton of time on the boring parts of your workflow. This first one here, this is the Bulk POD Product Creator. This is a tool that allows you to automate the creation of your print-on-demand products. All you have to do is select your artwork images that you want to create print-on-demand products for, select the product that you want to create more of, then just specify your rules for the operation, click Create My Products, and it'll completely automate the creation of all your products for you. It also uses AI image recognition to automatically generate titles, descriptions, and tags for each one of your created products. The other useful tool is this Photoshop plugin. This allows you to automate the creation of your custom mockup images in Photoshop. You can find a link to both of these tools in the description. Drop a like if you found this helpful. That's all I got for now. Thank you guys for watching, and see you later.